I want you to imagine being a struggling musician in early 1972. You've just finished playing this incredibly depressing gig inside a converted gas tank in Switzerland.
Oh man, a converted gas tank. That sounds completely miserable.
Right. It's freezing, the acoustics are just terrible, and the crowd is completely indifferent to you. Your band is entirely broke, your record label is furious with your lack of progress, and, well, your latest album, a record called Brain Capers, has completely flopped.
So you are basically at rock bottom.
Exactly. You are so desperate, so entirely out of options, that you decide to call up a famous friend. But you don't call to ask for a hit song, you call to beg for a job playing bass guitar in his backing band.
Just completely throwing in the towel.
Yeah. But little do you know, that single desperate phone call is about to accidentally birth one of the greatest rock anthems in history. You're listening to Deep Cuts and Deep Thinking.
It really is the ultimate historical hinge point. I mean, we are looking at a moment where one band's total surrender basically created the perfect blank canvas for another artist's absolute peak of creativity.
Our mission today is to take our stack of sources, completely unpack the 1972 glam rock masterpiece, All the Young Dudes by Mott the Hoople.
Such an incredible track.
It really is. We are going to explore exactly how David Bowie rescued a dying band, how a hidden apocalyptic message became this joyous youth anthem, and why this single piece of music served as a vital transmission signal for an entirely disillusioned generation.
Yeah, and the broader context of 1972 Britain is incredibly crucial here. You have a country dealing with massive coal miner strikes, power cuts, and just severe economic stagnation.
A really bleak time for a lot of people.
Exactly. The youth culture is incredibly fractured. The utopian dreams of the 1960s have, essentially evaporated. It left behind this profound cultural hangover. The music scene is basically searching for a completely new identity, a new vocabulary, really.
And sitting right in the middle of that cultural depression is Mott the Hoople. We really have to start with the sheer desperation of this band, because without that desperation, the radical reinvention they undergo just makes no sense.
Right. In early 1972, they were critically respected, but just commercially invisible.
Yeah, they had released 4 albums, and they had a really great reputation as a live act, but they just weren't moving the needle at all.
Their financial reality was just bleak. I mean, they were alienating their label, Island Records, and the relentless, unglamorous touring was just draining them physically and emotionally.
Which is what leads to the phone call.
Right. That exhaustion is what prompts Pete Overend-Watts, the band's bass player, to make that fateful phone call to David Bowie. And as you mentioned in the opening, he wasn't calling to leverage Bowie's fame for the band. He felt so defeated that he was essentially asking Bowie for a job as his touring bass player.
Which is wild, considering Bowie was actually a massive superfan of Mott the Hoople. Like, he loved their energy. So Bowie, wanting to help keep them together, offers them a demo of a brand new song he'd written called Suffragette City.
A legendary song in its own right.
Oh, absolutely. But this is where the story takes a bizarre turn. The band politely declines the song.
They say no to David Bowie.
Yeah. They listen to it and decide it's just too frenetic, too overwhelmingly Bowie, and just not gritty enough for their heavy working-class identity.
I mean, turning down a lifeline from David Bowie when your own band is bankrupt seems like a profound display of self-sabotage.
It really does.
But from their perspective, Suffragette City required this manic, hyper-energetic delivery. They were depressed, exhausted guys in denim and leather. They physically and emotionally couldn't summon the frantic pop energy that the track demanded.
It makes a lot of sense when you put it that way. It's like a gritty, oil-stained mechanic being offered a pristine, sequined racing suit.
That's a great analogy.
Sure, it's an expensive top-of-the-line suit, but the mechanic knows they'd look completely ridiculous wearing it, so they pass on it. Fast forward to late March 1972. Watts calls Bowie back. He says, look, we're officially splitting up. The band is done. Suffragette City isn't going to save us.
And Bowie's reaction to that news is fascinating. He doesn't just offer condolences. He tells them to hold off.
Just wait a minute, basically.
Yeah, he essentially says, give me a few hours. And literally, just a short time later, around 3 p.m. that exact same day, Bowie calls them back. He tells them, I've written a song for you since we spoke. It's a hit.
The idea of casually writing a generational anthem between lunch and 3 p.m. is just staggering.
It's unheard of, really.
But he did it. They set up a meeting at the main man management office on Regent Street in London. And the visual of this meeting is legendary. Bowie sits cross-legged on the floor of this office, just holding an acoustic guitar.
No backing track, just him on the floor.
Exactly. He plays them this brand new song, All the Young Dudes. Ian Hunter, Mott the Hoople's lead singer, recalled getting literal chills down his spine. He knew from the very first chorus that it was a massive hit.
Even Dale Griffin, the drummer, later admitted he thought Bowie was out of his mind to give away a song of that caliber.
Right, why wouldn't you keep it for yourself?
Exactly. But Bowie was entering this hyper-creative phase, actively building the Ziggy Stardust universe. He viewed giving the song away not as a loss, but as a deliberate career-saving gift for a band he deeply respected. And it simultaneously expanded his own influence as a songwriter and producer.
So we have this incredible song, but right now it's just a guy sitting cross-legged with an acoustic guitar. How does that skeletal demo transform into the massive, sweeping stadium anthem we all know?
We have to move from that Regent Street office into the studio.
Yeah, because the intentional mechanical construction of this track is brilliant. Let's talk about those sessions.
So the recording sessions took place near midnight at London's Trident studios, with some additional mixing work at Olympic Studios. Bowie stepped into the producer's chair with absolute discipline.
He had a very clear vision.
He did. He knew Mott the Hoople's tendency was to play heavy, loud, and cluttered. His first directive was to strip all of that back. He cleaned up the sonic real estate.
And the foundational element they built this new sound upon was the famous Bechstein piano at Trident Studios. Right?
Oh, absolutely. That specific piano is practically a band member on this track. The Trident Bechstein was famous for its incredibly bright, almost honky-tonk punch.
It has very distinct sound.
It does. Because of the way the hammer struck the strings, it had a hard, glassy sound that cut entirely through a rock mix. By anchoring the track with that specific piano sound, Bowie gave the song a rowdy, pub rock, sing-along feel right out of the gate. It grounded the glam rock elements in something deeply familiar and communal.
And then you add Mick Ronson to the mix. Mick Ronson, the legendary guitarist from Bowie's Spiders from Mars backing band, comes in to arrange the strings and add his signature lead guitar lines.
Those lead guitar moments are the secret weapon of the track.
They really are. It's a very specific mechanism at work. Ronson used a raw, dirty fuzz tone, pushing his amplifier to the absolute limit, but he played these soaring, highly melodic hooks that you could actually whistle.
Which is hard to do with a fuzz tone.
Right. That specific combination, dirty texture with a clean pop melody, is exactly what bridges the gap between intimidating hard rock and accessible radio pop.
And the underlying musical theory reinforces that exact emotional bridge. Bowie constructed the chord progression to manipulate the listener physically. The verse features a descending bass line. Musically, a descending bass line creates a subtle feeling of sinking or tension. The chords go D, A, B minor, D over A, G, F sharp minor, and E minor.
It's stepping downwards.
Exactly. But as that bass line moves downward, the vocal melody forces the listener's ear upward. When the chorus finally hits, it resolves that tension with a rising chord structure that mimics a gospel choir. You are literally feeling the sensation of overcoming gravity.
It feels incredibly triumphant. And Bowie didn't just produce, he was intensely hands-on in the booth. He's playing rhythm guitar, he's layering in hand claps, and he is heavily involved in the backing vocals to create this massive gang vocal effect.
It feels like a crowd.
Yeah. It doesn't sound like a polished professional choir. It sounds like 100 kids crammed into a pub just belting it out together with their arms around each other. But speaking of the studio environment, I have to bring up the very end of the track.
Oh, the spoken word part?
Yes. There's that famous spoken word outro where Ian Hunter is yelling, "Hey, you there," with the glasses. And he's telling someone he wants them. I always pictured Bowie handing Ian Hunter a script for that specific spoken word part. It feels like a carefully constructed theater piece meant to end the glam rock drama on a cinematic note.
You would completely think so, given how theatrical Bowie's entire approach was during this era. But that is actually one of the greatest myths about the song.
Wait, really? It wasn't scripted?
Not at all. It was a moment of genuine frustration. Ian Hunter was in the vocal booth trying to nail his parts near midnight, and there were people talking loudly and ignoring him in the control room.
So he just started yelling at them?
Yeah, he started improvising a rant just to grab their attention and shut them up. He was drawing on a very fresh, real memory of a live gig where he got so infuriated with a heckler in the front row that he dumped a beer on him.
That is amazing. It's so funny that the recording ended with a grumpy accidental ad-lib because that raw, unscripted grit provides such a stark contrast to the highly conceptual message Bowie was actually trying to communicate in the lyrics.
The disconnect there is fascinating.
It is. The music we just described sounds triumphant, like a victory lap for the youth. But if we peel back the lyrics, there's a profound dissonance between what the songwriter intended and what the audience actually felt.
Bowie originally wrote All the Young Dudes as a specific chapter in the Ziggy Stardust narrative. In his overarching concept, the news that the young dudes are carrying in the song is an apocalyptic warning.
A warning about the end of the world.
Right. It's the announcement that the Earth only has 5 years left before it is destroyed due to the complete depletion of natural resources. The young dudes are supposed to be a gang of survivors spreading the word of impending doom.
Okay, I have to push back on Bowie's intent here. If this is supposed to be a dark science fiction warning about the end of the world, why does the entire chorus feel like a giant, joyous pub sing-along?
It's totally contradictory.
Exactly. When crowds heard this song in 1972, they didn't hear a doomsday warning. They heard a roll call. They heard a massive invitation to find their community.
And that tension between intent and reception is what makes the song a masterpiece. Once a song is released, the audience takes ownership of the meaning based on their own reality.
They make it their own.
Yeah. The youth of early 1970s, Britain didn't need a science fiction story about the apocalypse. They felt like they were already living through a slow cultural apocalypse. They were dealing with widespread unemployment and a very real sense of being written off by society.
So they connected with the grit of it.
Exactly. They heard those lyrics, which touch on violence, suicide, and feeling entirely numb, and they simply recognized their own daily lives.
And the lyrics violently reject the false idealism of the 1960s that failed to fix any of those problems. There's that brilliant verse where the narrator mocks his older brother, who's still stuck at home listening to his Beatles and Rolling Stones records.
It's such a cutting line.
It really is. The narrator explicitly says they never got it off on that revolution stuff. The message is clear. The hippie movement failed. The politicians didn't fix the world. So let's stop pretending a protest song will save us. Let's just put on some makeup, find our friends, and survive this together.
It marks a definitive shift from the concept of collective political revolution to a focus on individual identity, performance, and aesthetic survival. You can see this clearly in the opening lines.
About watching the news.
Yes. The narrator talks about watching television news, seeing violence, and just feeling entirely numb to the screen. The media saturation has essentially paralyzed them.
Which is exactly why this song feels so eerily modern. Think about the mechanism of feeling numb to a constant stream of tragic television broadcasts in the 1970s. That is a direct one-to-one parallel to the doom scrolling we all experience in the modern era.
Oh, absolutely. It's the exact same psychological response.
It's that exact same feeling of being totally overwhelmed by the world ending on a glowing screen in front of you and deciding the only sane response is to disengage from the macro politics and focus entirely on your immediate chosen family and your personal aesthetic.
And the concept of chosen family leads directly into how the song functioned as a literal haven for its listeners. Because it wasn't just a rejection of 60s politics, it was a loud embrace of a completely new outsider identity.
It gave them a home.
It really did. The song provided a highly visible safe space for marginalized youth, particularly by smuggling the queer coding of glam rock directly onto mainstream radio.
Let's look at how casual and subversive those lyrics are. I mean, the song celebrates gender play right out in the open. It throws in a line about a boy dressing like a queen and references to looking sweet.
Which was incredibly bold for the time.
Yeah, and this wasn't abstract poetry for Bowie. He wasn't making up characters. He was explicitly name-checking his real-life queer club circle in London, wasn't he?
He was broadcasting their existence to the entire world. The lyrics specifically mention Freddie Breddy, who was a brilliant tailor and clothes designer from London's underground queer club scene.
He made the Ziggy clothes, right?
Exactly. Breddy was the man who actually helped Bowie design and create the iconic, colorful Ziggy Stardust wardrobe. The song also mentions Wendy Kirby, who was part of a vibrant group in Bowie's orbit, who shaved their eyebrows to achieve this unearthly, gender-fluid alien look.
That is so cool.
It is. Bowie took the reality of the Sombrero Club in Kensington and put it on a platter for the mainstream public.
Which results in this incredible, almost unbelievable irony. Mott the Hoople was, by all accounts, a straight, incredibly rough working-class rock band. They were guys who drank pints and wore dirty denim.
Totally unglamorous.
Right. Yeah, by performing this specific song, they accidentally birthed a massive, validating anthem for the gay community, especially when the track crossed over to America.
And the delivery mechanism is what made the cultural infiltration so effective. If David Bowie, who was already presenting as an ethereal glam alien, sang it, mainstream audiences might have dismissed it as just Bowie being strange.
Sure. That's just David Bowie doing his thing.
Exactly. But the message was coming from guys who looked like the tough kids from the rough side of town. When a gritty pub rock band sings about boys dressing like queens and looking sweet, it removes the threat level for the average listener.
It bridges that gap.
It made the gender bending and the queer coding feel incredibly accessible, grounded, and tough. It validated the outcasts because the tough guys were the ones singing their names.
I want you to imagine you were a teenager listening to the radio in 1972. You feel totally isolated, completely out of place in your gray industrial town. You feel like an alien.
A very common feeling back then.
Yeah. And then suddenly a rock song comes on the radio that casually normalizes your exact subculture. It doesn't treat you like a freak. It literally sings your friends' names. It says, you belong here, and there are thousands of others just like you.
That level of validation is completely staggering.
It changes the trajectory of a person's life.
Yeah.
And you can visibly see the impact of that belonging and how it physically transformed Mott the Hoople themselves. The visual evolution of the band post-release is just striking.
They fully leaned into it.
They realized they had become the leaders of this new movement. They transitioned away from the unwashed hair and leather and began embracing Art Deco iconography. They started wearing sequin jackets, platform boots, and silver makeup.
They managed to perfectly balance their inherent streetwise grit with this new elevated glam theatricality.
They became the perfect bridge between the street and the stage. And that bridge leads us directly into the aftermath of the track, chart success, and the incredibly long shadow this song cast over the next 50 years of music.
Because this singular transmission didn't just save Mott the Hoople, it permanently rewired the DNA of British rock and pop culture.
The immediate impact was exactly the rescue mission Bowie had promised that afternoon on the phone. Right?
Oh, absolutely. Released in July 1972, the song completely revitalized Mott the Hoople. It shot up to number 5 in the UK charts and managed to crack number 40 in the US.
Kept them from breaking up, for sure.
It gave the band a massive influx of cash, a new dedicated audience, and a whole new lease on life, resulting in several more successful albums before they eventually disbanded a few years later.
But the legacy is so much more profound than just chart placement. When you analyze the structural components of the song, the grounded street-level realism in the verses, mixed with that massive unpolished gang vocal chorus, you're essentially looking at the exact blueprint for punk rock.
You really are. You can draw a direct, undeniable line from All the Young Dudes to the ethos of bands like The Clash.
The Clash took that exact concept of the working-class outsider identity, stripped away the sequins, and weaponized the grit.
And the influence doesn't stop there. A couple of decades later, you see the exact same musical DNA resurface in the 1990s Britpop movement.
Ooh, like Oasis.
Exactly. The sweeping, working-class, slightly melancholy pub anthems of bands like Oasis and Blur owe a massive structural debt to the attitude and arrangement of this specific track.
It's also proven to be an incredibly adaptable piece of music, which is the true mark of a songwriting standard. The covers of this song are fascinating because they highlight completely different facets of the track.
Like the Bruce Dickinson version.
Yes, you have someone like Bruce Dickinson giving it a heavy metal spin, completely leaning into the aggressive hard rock roots of the original band. And then, on the completely opposite end of the spectrum, you have Cyndi Lauper.
Her version is gorgeous.
It is. She highlighted the underlying sadness and exhaustion of the lyrics with this beautifully jazzy, soulful interpretation.
And of course, the most fascinating interpretation comes from David Bowie himself.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's the ultimate irony of the entire story. He gave the song away as an act of charity to save his friends. But the song became such a massive, generation-defining touchstone that he spent the next several decades performing it live.
Almost as a way to reclaim it as part of his own mythos.
Exactly. You hear his version on the album David Live, and it's this drastically different arrangement. It's heavily driven by saxophone, highly theatrical, and he delivers the vocals almost as if he's a manic preacher shouting from a pulpit.
Well, Bowie recognized that while Mott the Hoople brilliantly captured the generational, street-level reality of the song, his original, darker, apocalyptic interpretation still held immense narrative value.
So he kept both versions alive.
Right. By continuing to perform his own drastically different version, he managed to keep both meanings of the song alive simultaneously in the public consciousness.
So what does this massive, swirling history mean for us today? We've explored how all the young dudes served as the ultimate survival signal for a generation inheriting the broken promises of the 1960s.
They were bored, they were anxious about the world falling apart around them.
And they were desperate for a sense of identity and community. Which leaves me with a final provocative thought for you to ponder long after we sign off today.
Let's hear it.
If this single 3-minute radio track was the ultimate transmission signal for the disillusioned youth of the 1970s, what is the equivalent transmission signal for today's algorithm-driven youth?
That's a great question.
As we face our own modern crises, our own media saturation, ecological anxiety, and profound cultural burnout, are we still waiting for a visionary to sit cross-legged on the floor and play us the unifying anthem we need to survive? Or has the fragmented nature of the algorithm replaced the concept of a shared anthem entirely?
It really forces us to ask whether a single piece of music can ever unify an entire generation again when everyone is trapped inside their own perfectly curated digital echo chamber.
Something to seriously mull over the next time you put on your headphones. If you like this episode, please hit like and subscribe.